You're listening to the BBM Global Network with 25 years in broadcast audio and video production. Our passionate team creates content and marketing for the world of Internet Talk Radio. If you've got a passion, come join us at bbmglobalnetwork.com. The BBM Global Network. Your voice is now heard.
Welcome to Happiness Ninja Down Under with your host, Jamie Rose. Jamie will educate and empower people, organizations, and communities to help us all make better health and well-being choices. She will also engage you with expert influencers from around the world. So now, please welcome the host of Happiness Ninja Down Under, Jamie Rose.
Welcome to Happiness Ninja Down Under. I'm your host, Jamie Rose, and you're listening to Bold Brave TV, coming to you live from New York City. As always, I have another fabulous guest this week, coming all the way from Australia again. This is my good friend, Trish Jenkins. She has a fabulous story. We call her the Shift and Lift Mindset Speaker. Trish, thank you very much. Welcome.
Oh, it's so thrilling to be here, Jamie. Look, I'm looking in. I'm in New York from Brisbane. It's so cool.
I wish I could be as excited to be back in Brisbane. No, I'm just joking. So it's a very early there for the morning for you. Thank you for joining me. You have a really incredible story. We haven't seen each other for a few years. Actually, let's give the audience a little bit of a background before getting stuck into your story. I will drop a few little hints to keep people engaged. So we will tell the audience about how you ended up in prison. I'm sure we'll be bringing back some wonderful memories of that time for you during this discussion.
Oh, yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. But before we get into that, because obviously I think the audience will probably be looking at you going, how does somebody that looks like you end up in jail? You don't look like the kind of person who would wind up in a situation like that, but you did. But before we get into that, so I was thinking back to when we met. Was it through Antemio, that training organization, or was it before then?
I think we'd known each other in networking circles, but we did a course together to do with professional speaking and business, I think. And I got a ride with you, so we would travel in the car together.
Yeah,
and so
we would. Yeah,
talk about it and debrief on the way home. And you ended up just entering my heart in a special way, just from those conversations that we had.
We connected very quickly.
Yeah, we'd both experienced different kinds of prisons and had to get free.
That's a good way of looking at it. I've never thought of that. Yeah, actually.
You don't have to go to prison to feel trapped.
Definitely not. And I mean, that would have been 6 years ago now, I think. So that was just like the start of my journey, really, with all of this.
Huh.
So I've come a long way from then, and so have you, actually. So we'll get stuck into your story, being obviously the highlight, and that I want to start with is, how did you end up in prison?
Yeah, well, I was working for a fellow. It's funny. I have all sorts of answers for that one, but some of them are. Yeah, anyway, poor judgment, basically. Look, my husband and I had been doing very well in real estate, and we'd been investors and done some trading, and then I ended up working for a fellow who ran a managed fund, what Americans call a mutual fund, and I was a representative of that, and It went well, very well. We had our own money invested there from our mortgages, our lines of credit, and it was a fairly high return. And he would pay people each month their return, and then suddenly he stopped paying. And it was my job to tell everyone, we're not getting paid this month for whatever reason it was with the market and so on. This was 2005, so 16 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel like that long ago. But so it was my job to tell everyone there's no money this month. And that was hard, but we did that. And then there was another month, and then another month. And during that time, he became harder for me to reach, and people became more panicky, and they were calling, emailing, turning up at my home, asking, begging, demanding money. And, you know, they were scared, and frightened people can be frightening. And I wasn't trained for that sort of behaviour, and my own money was there, and anybody I would have turned to for advice and help had money in it. My accountant, you know, it was just really, really stressful. And when you have excess stress, it inhibits your ability to think clearly.
Yes.
I know that now. Then I was just drowning in trying to, you know, hoping that this was going to be okay, and trying to get a hold of my boss. And there came a point where I was in touch with him, and I said, look, there's some money over here. Can I use that to give it to people because they just desperately need their money, and, you know, just till next time. And he said, all right, do that. Mm-hmm. Well, that money was not for them. That was for something else. So what I effectively did, Jamie, is I misused funds, and I paid them with it. I didn't steal it, but that's not the point. That's what I did.
Most people wouldn't even know that's a crime, though.
Oh.
Like I wouldn't think that's a crime. Like, it's people are owed money. So
no.
To me,
Jamie,
it doesn't matter where the money comes from. Like, if it's in the same company, you know.
Yeah, well, it does matter.
As you learn.
You have to do things correctly. And now when I speak to businesses, I talk to them about their protocols and things in place so that they don't get to that point. You have to have things in place. And if you're getting stressed, and we treat stress like a badge of honor, like it's evidence that you're a hard worker. No, it just means that you're not mentally in control. And you do need to have things in place so that you can make better judgments. Anyway, the whole thing turned out to be what's known as a Ponzi scheme, which you may know is where you think you're making money, but really they're just giving you back a little bit of your own money so that you think that it's making money. And of course, it's not sustainable. It implodes. Yeah. He was complained about to the authorities, and I was brought in to answer questions, which I said, well, there's this and I did this. And if you could just we'll just be all right. If you tell me what to do, I'll do it, and we'll be on our merry way. And that was not what happened. It was like, you did what? And from there we went through it all collapsed. I went through 2 years of liquidation where we lost everything. Then I was prosecuted. And in 2009, in January, just after the global financial crisis, everyone's touchy about money. I front up to get my penalty, which could have been a fine. And I got the maximum. And I was in prison from January to September in 2009.
And what they charged you with? What was the official charge?
Dishonestly gaining an advantage of an amount more than $5,000. I'm not sure. You didn't gain that, though. There was no advantage gained, but that was what the charge with. So
it's just another part of our corrupt system, I think. That's all that it highlights to me.
Well, Jamie, I know what I did.
Yeah.
I caved under pressure and I did the wrong thing, and I paid a massive price for it. I'm not going to pretend that I did nothing wrong. I did. I own that.
Exactly.
I just had to wear it.
And, you know, that is the case. So I like the fact that you take the ownership. We do have to cut to the break, but happiness and taking ownership is correlated.
Yes, it is.
We know that. And as the story goes on, hopefully the audience will begin to understand that as well. We'll be back in a couple of moments, guys. Stay tuned.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Happiness Ninja Down Under. I'm Jamie Rose, and this is Bold Brave TV. I have the amazing Trish Jenkins here. She is a ex-prisoner, now preacher. And before the break, we were just discussing how she wound up in jail and how we were going to pivot that into some coping strategies for how she dealt with her time in prison and how that all came about. Trish, thanks for joining us again. Now, would you like to share, we were just sort of tying in accepting, your prison
responsibility.
Sentence. And responsibility. Yeah, take it away.
It is one of the cases when you've gone through things, we have a filter. We see, there's the other person as the villain, there's the unjust situation, and then there's us. And, it's tempting to project ourselves as the victim, and very often we are, but it's usually not as clear cut as that. And it is important to take responsibility for your part, or at least be responsible for your response. Be response able. Even if you haven't done anything wrong, when you can take charge of how you're going to respond to that, that's empowering. For me, I had to accept, even though I had been deceived, even though it didn't seem like what I had done was such a big deal, I had to realize that, in the eyes of the law, ignorance is not a defense. And I knew it was kind of like I knew it wasn't the proper way to do things. I just couldn't see an alternative. Now, there would have been, but I just couldn't see it. Yeah,
you were under stress.
Yeah,
just
so
reactivity.
I had to accept that. I had to accept my part and be prepared for whatever penalty it might be, which could have been anything. And at the same time, I had to find a way to forgive myself. So we talk a lot about forgiving other people for hurting us, and I won't go too far down that track, because unless you can teach someone how to forgive, you're not helping them by telling them they should.
Yeah.
And I did learn how to do that. Actually, I have, during the show, I'll show you, there are 3 things, I could probably do it now, 3 things that I started to ask myself that helped me to be able to forgive and look past and deal with stuff going on. And just so I don't forget it, I'd like to share it now.
Sure.
I had to ask, in terms of dealing with my anger at the person and then the system, because prison Prison, there's a lot of programs to help people rehabilitate, but there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on that is damaging, that undermines the progress that happens.
Well,
and it's dehumanizing.
I don't know if you realize, but after we met, I worked in 3 prisons for a year. So I completely understand what you're talking about.
There's a whole darkness to the place, and it's full of mental illness. It's full of lying, mean,
contradiction,
deceitful, just horrible people. And then you get to meet the prisoners.
Right, exactly. I know. I knew you were going to say that. I was like, and then you meet the actual prisoners.
Right. Look, there are some good people in there who are officers. There are some who actually care. But there are 3 areas, 3 questions, 3 things that I got into a pattern of asking about. Now, I did it as a prayer, but you can do it as a question. So one is, how else can I see this person? Because I see them as the villain. You know, we see the other person as the villain. How else can I see them? And that applied to the person who ripped us off, but it also applied to the officers who were nasty, and it also applied to the various prisoners who were acting out their own dysfunction. Let's put it that way. How else can I see this person? How else can I see the situation? Because when you ask how else, you're asking a question that your brain can then invite other options to.
It's curiosity.
Instead of judging it as, this is bad, this is damaging, this is hurting my mental health, therefore I will act like it's hurting my mental health.
Yeah, then you get stuck in the victim.
You do. And the third one, so we have the person in front of you, we have the situation, but then we come back to ourselves, and it's, how can I see me in this? How am I showing up in this? You know, and how else can I show up in this? Because we'll often react out of our dysfunction. We'll get triggered. We'll get angry, and there's a pause. You know, Mel Robbins talks about the 5-second pause. You know, making decisions in 5. But she says in that moment, you can catch it.
Yeah.
And choose a different path. And it takes practice.
Well, emotions, they typically peak for 6 seconds and then they diminish. And then if you choose to focus on it, then it becomes a feeling. And then if you choose to focus on that feeling, then that becomes a mood, which then leads to, depression and things like that. Yeah. So that first seconds is crucial.
Yeah. And I didn't know to do that straight away. It kind of evolved. And now that's what I teach. How else can I see the person, the situation, and myself? And that opens up all kinds of problem-solving opportunities. At the time, it was pretty dark and scary.
I can imagine. We have the break shortly, but you did touch on in the break that sometimes you weren't always able to catch yourself, and you did sort of react and wind up in a little bit of trouble. Did you want to just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I can. Look, it wears you down, and I had to find ways to keep my mental health. So your environment will poison you if you're not careful. You've got to protect your mental ecosystem. And so it's really important I would sing, I would pray, the way to answer a negative thought is with a positive word. I'm feeling down, but you got to speak it out loud. And even by myself in my cell to speak those things. But very often it was with other people, and I would talk to them and be an encourager. You can sit and whinge. Yeah, you can sit and be the complainer with someone else. And women are great at complaining about whoever's not there and being mean and gossiping about each other. But to be that one who is an encourager, and to, I thought I had it tough because I had no shoes till I met someone who had no feet. There's always someone worse off.
And the power of words is incredible. I've had somebody on that talks about pattern interruption, which reminds me of that. We do have to cut to the break, but when we come back, we'll talk more about some of the strategies that you learned and developed and teach other people, basically to have that pattern interrupt and to set yourself on a good path again. So we'll be back shortly. Stay tuned, guys.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality? But it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. You know, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Happiness Ninja Down Under. I am Jamie Rose, the host of this series, and you are on Bold Brave Media Network. I have the amazing Trish Jenkins here with me, coming all the way from Australia. She is an ex-prisoner. She is a preacher now, and she teaches different resilience and coping and stress management skills all around the world as a result of her ending up in prison. Thank you again, Trish, for joining me. Now, we wanted to lead into some of your experiences in the jail. I think that, let's share with the audience some of those scary moments and how you dealt with them and turn them around.
Oh, look, Jamie, it was a culture shock. You know, I didn't grow up in disadvantage. I didn't grow up with, Uncle Billy's coming home from jail this weekend, let's have a barbecue. It wasn't my world. I had a church world where people who had been to jail, people in church who had been to jail, they were getting their life right and we were helping them. So I guess you could call it, I was with people that were there before photo, It was like, now that I'm in church, this is my after photo, but that was my life before. Well, I sort of dived into the life before from these people. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, I was clueless. And I never did get the games at school and I was just totally clueless, which may have helped me because I was also fearless in some ways. I saw these women who were quite rough looking and talking, and actually the roughies were not the ones who were harder to deal with. The hardest ones to deal with were the ones who seemed a bit more respectable, a bit smarter, a bit sneakier, a bit more calculating. They're the ones you wouldn't see it coming. Open aggression I can deal with, but the stab in the back and your face plant on the ground because you've been set up.
Yeah, and you didn't see it coming.
That's a lot harder. I can't say I have a lot of skills with the mean girls. apart from prayer. But I do remember this one girl. She was over 6 foot. She was fairly androgynous. She was very masculine, very strong looking, mixed race, attitude about it, very disadvantaged, has obviously been a victim of racism and the issues that you face and abuse, terrible abuse, that I didn't know all this at the time, but she looked quite scary and aggressive and not friendly at all. And I was fascinated. So I would talk to her and ask her questions and, and I guess I was like a little bird around a lion that's like, oh, this is interesting. And all I've got to go, rah!
I can only imagine. I can picture it. You're lucky you didn't get your head kicked in.
And I have to confess that part of my cope, I thought these poor women, they all need Jesus. And so I became that annoying Christian.
I bet you that went down really well.
Yeah, it did. But I tell you what, the thing was, though, as I settled in, I actually cared. It's because of that relationship with Christ that my heart, I wanted to rescue everyone and care about them. And so that gave me some boldness. But one day this woman, we're in the cage, which is like a yard where it's concrete. There's a basketball hoop at one end, a telephone at the other end for our timed calls. And there was caging around us that looks like, the reinforced, the mesh that you reinforce concrete with. It's like a grid. That's what was caging us in. Birds could come in, but we couldn't get out. Yeah. And she came up to me and she looks down at me because she's 6 feet and I'm 5'4". And she says, so you had a visit from your parents? And I went, yeah. She says, can they bring me something? And I said, oh, what, you mean like a book?
You want some cake?
I thought, what, like a book? And I thought, well, maybe they can give it to the library and you can. She says, no, some drugs. True dinks, that's what she said. And in that split second,
she thought that you'd built up a relationship enough that she could ask you that? Yes.
Well, she was trying it on anyway.
Yeah, she's seeing.
People might not think, someone who looks like, now I didn't look like this then. It's amazing what a bit of lippy can do. But I still look pretty square. Yeah, pretty square. They called me.
You are going around preaching about Jesus as well, so I think that was a dead giveaway.
They called me a 180 straighty for both reasons, and I just went, there is no way in the world. And that moment where you wonder, hang on a minute, did I say that out loud? There is no way in the world I would risk getting you into trouble.
Oh, you put it back onto her. Oh, that was clever.
Well, I'm not that clever, Jamie. I think that was just divine inspiration.
Yeah.
And she said, you care about me?
Oh, bless her.
And I went, yep, yes, I do.
Bless her.
We became good friends after that.
Oh, I wish I could say my reaction was the same. I kind of was the opposite. I laughed and said, there's no way I'm going to do something so stupid to get up in here like you. But we already developed a joking relationship. So she actually respected that. I love that the lady, she realized that you were genuine and you were nurturing. That's
when
really.
When you care, you cut through the fear.
Yeah. And the fact is, most of the people that are in prison, part of the reason why they are there is because they haven't had too many people to care about them. I found the same thing when I was in there. When they found out that I did the Happiness Ninja, they all loved it and they wanted to support it because they could feel that I was genuinely trying to help people, and that's all they're looking for in their own lives. We do have to cut to the break. I'm sorry. It always goes really quick, but we'll come back and we'll touch more on that because I think people would really like to hear more about that because that's a pretty significant attitude shift.
The opiate epidemic has reached crisis levels, and with so many families affected by addiction, opiate-related drug overdoses, and death, the time is now to have a real constructive conversation about addiction that could lead to better prevention, treatment, and recovery. Alan Charles, author and keynote speaker on drug abuse and prevention, presents The Alan Charles Show. Alan brings a message of hope, sharing his unbelievable story of surviving a 24-year addiction to cocaine, and highlights from his memoir, Walking Out the Other Side, an addict's journey from loneliness to life. His raw honesty and courageous heart breaks the stigma of addiction and offers a unique perspective into the mind of an addict. Join Alan each week as he brings his listeners to a true understanding of the grip of addiction. It is only with this understanding that we can begin to heal. The Alan Charles Show, Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network. Have you ever felt like no one is listening, or you're not getting the honest attention you deserve? Do you even know the kind of attention you want or need? You are not alone. Alice Aspen March is here to help. Thanks to Alice, through her epiphany and research over the word attention, there are solutions to the attention dilemma. Worldwide audiences have been enthralled and engaged for over 40 years with her visionary and pioneering observations. The kind of attention we get and give is vital to improving our lives and society. Alice and her weekly guests review game-changing insights for transforming and improving our understanding of attention, providing techniques for creating healthier and empowering behavior. Get a new perspective on a mainstream word. Tune into Why Our Attention Matters for fresh and thought-provoking conversations every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on boldbravemedia.com and the TuneIn Radio app.
Welcome back to Happiness Ninja Down Under. I'm Jamie Rose, and this is Bold Brave TV. Before the break, we were just discussing Trish Jenkins. She spent 8 months in prison for basically a Ponzi scam, and we've been discussing how she coped, how she turned that around, how God has been a really good influence that helped her through that, how she befriended people in the prison. And Trish, have you got any other tips on, you face some scary characters and you face some scary situations, and we'll touch on some of the other methods. You started writing letters to people while you were in there, and we'll get into that a little bit further on. But did you have, because you are the shift and lift mindset coach, you've touched on some 3 really key things that I think is very beneficial for people to have a mindset shift. But do you have anything else, any tips or treasures, any go-to things that you find that the audience could find helpful as well?
Well, I do. One thing that shifted in my mind, now, while this was going on, I wasn't thinking, I'm going to shift and lift my mindset. I didn't know that phrase. These were things that basically I was trying out. At the time, I had 20 years of experience in the business and corporate world and personal development. So, I knew a lot of the principles of mindset and even faith-based stuff. And what I found is that I had to draw on them and test them all, and some of them turned out to be rubbish. That they just in the face of reality, it does not help. And I've learned a lot more since in the journey from jail to doing what I'm doing now. It wasn't like I'm out of jail, hey presto, I'm going to preach. Mm-hmm. There was a whole lot of shame that I had to overcome. So that's, I don't want people to, well, here's the thing. Be gentle with yourself, because we can hear these stories and these, people rattle off these cliches and they just don't ring true for us because we are in a whole world of pain. So I would encourage people that, I feel for you. I know that you're hurting. I know that you're scared. I know that it can be so frightening. It takes your breath away and it's just shaky. but you can be brave. Being brave is not the absence of fear. It's moving forward in the face of fear. Little steps.
I think
Have
you touched
compassion
on
on yourself.
Yeah, you really touched on a really great point. When I was doing mindfulness meditation teaching, I found that teaching people and just not even teaching them, you're just reminding them that to be kind and gentle to themselves. That people really resonate with that, because we live in a harsh world where it's based, I think people are so used to the harsh world that we live in that they don't actually realize there's something really wrong with expecting somebody who just spent 9 months growing a child to have, a week off work and then just go back to it. Back in the olden times, like more tribal type things, I'm pretty sure there was like a minimum of 6 weeks that like the mother just does nothing but recover, and all of the community help her in the first 6 weeks with the baby, because her body needs to recover. Like, that's just one example of just how harsh a world we live in that I don't think people understand.
Yeah, it's important to be compassionate on yourself and on those around you. I could have driven a wedge in my marriage because of my pain and trauma, but I thought, we've lost everything. They are not losing my relationship, that it's not getting stolen from me. And so when I needed to vent, I would go for a drive and park in a quiet car park, deserted car park, and cry and scream and pray and do those things and get settled. I don't recommend screaming every time you feel like it. I don't. But sometimes there's an outlet, running, go running, boxing.
A healthy outlet, yeah.
Some healthy outlet.
Yeah.
Do not take it out on your partner. We think, well, they're there, they have to love us. No, they don't. You need to be careful of that as well. And also, how are you showing up in front of those you influence, such as your children or your employees? It's going to sound a little hard, but practice what you preach. Like, what would you tell them about how to go through this? Model it. Your children are not your counselor. They're not. We've got to be self-aware. Get help. If you need professional help, get professional help. But there is hope. Ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen in any situation most of the time is we die. Mm-hmm. Pretty much. That's pretty much at the end of the road. Would you agree?
Yeah, and if you've lived a life with, that you've achieved and you've accomplished things that you want to do and you've been true to yourself, then there should be no fear of death.
Well, yeah, theoretically speaking. Look, I'm not a fan of the pain and suffering that may precede, what might happen. But the point is, your fear of death is, I can let you know, yes, you are going to die, but maybe not today. So pull back from that and say, well, what can I do now? And realize you can control what you can control, and don't worry about the things you can't control. Limit your social media, with the exception of Jamie Rose Brown's show, and mine, yeah, my Trish TV show.
Of course.
But tend your mental ecosystem. An ecosystem, something poisonous gets in, it goes through the whole ecosystem and ruins it. So you've got to tend that garden, that ecosystem of your head, your eye gate, your ear gate, what comes out your mouth gate, what churns around in your heart. Mm-hmm. Be very conscious of that and protect it.
And this is the thing, most people expect quick results. They don't want to do the work. It is hard, the journey for recovering from any kind of trauma or adversity or struggle. It is tough, and it does take practice. We have to cut to the break now, but when we come back, we'll continue with your story. Stay tuned, guys.
Mike Zorich, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorich, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorich has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network. Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com.
Welcome back to Happiness Ninja Down Under. I'm Jamie Rose. This is Bold Brave TV. So before the break, we're interviewing the awesome Trish Jenkins, and she was just telling us how she overcame the shame that she underwent when she was in prison, and how that led to what she's doing now. Trish, did you want to touch on that with us, and then you can share with the audience how you started Trish TV and became a speaker, educating people on this?
Yeah, sure, Jamie. Look, that shame is a big anchor around our neck. You know, that feeling unworthy, feeling like we've failed so badly. Who are we to offer anything? And I would like to share that, my faith is a big part of it. And, whatever your faith is, draw on it. If there's things that encourage you, draw on it, because it gives you hope for a future, for things to be different when it's out of our own control. And I sat in a prison cell on a vinyl-covered mattress with a vinyl-covered pillow, with a toilet in the corner that had the bubbler in the cistern. So if I wanted a drink, I had to drink out of the top of a toilet.
Oh, lovely.
It was miserable. And I said, God, I have ruined my life. I have not. And I started to feel a panic attack because I was by myself finally, because with overcrowding, you're always sharing with someone. And I finally had one, and I was like, and I could feel it rising. And I thought I had to stop and pull back from that and saying, God, I don't know what you can do with this, but I just hand it all over to you. And he reminded me of a verse in the Bible, which I'm sure is in other faiths as well, but in the Bible, in Romans 8:28, it says, God makes all things work together for our good when we love him. It doesn't say all things are good, but he can make those things work out for our good. And I said, I don't know how you can do anything with this, but I'm willing. And I came home, and it was as though I had exhaled and fell in pieces. I'd held it together, and then I was like, ah, and I just wanted to go to bed for the rest of my life. But I had a husband and 3 little girls. Chelsea was 10, the twins were 7 at the time. They'd been without their mummy for the most part of a year. And they needed me to show up. And I had to get up. And I had to go, you know what, I don't know what's going to come of this, but something will. And I was gentle with myself. I didn't push. There were days where I just couldn't do it, but little things that I could do. I could make my kids a sandwich, and I could sit quietly and cuddle them. You know, and looking back, I wished I'd got a pet by then, because I've got one now, and he's such a comfort. You know, an animal to cuddle, going for walks, and gradually, and spending time quietly and in prayer, and thinking, what can I do with my life now? Because I was basically unemployable.
It's very
my
hard
job was
to
in
get a
sales.
job.
Who's going to hire an ex-con
Yeah, it's very
in finance and sales? So I had to look at what I did have. What have you got? What is in your hand? What do you have? Not what you haven't. What do you have still? And I had lessons that I'd learned about fraud warning signals, and I had my story. And I quietly shared it with a couple of people in the community. I went to a lady who had a women's business group, and I said, I don't know about this, but I'm working on a book for women on finance, and this is what happened to me, and these are the lessons that I wished I'd known. And she said, oh my goodness, you have to share that. They need to know. So I began speaking to groups about fraud warning signals, and my women's book, I also put it out in a men's book. And then, so I was speaking on finance and fraud, and then people were asking me, what was it like in prison, and how did you get back up again? And they were much happier conversations. That was more inspirational, and that led to my shift and lift. And I had to make a decision that my message was more important than my pride. Because shame is about pride. Shame is about how other people think of us, and that we're not good enough, and not wanting to expose ourselves. It's not about pride that I'm so good. It's about pride that I care too much what people think. But if you care about them, if you've got a message that is helpful to them, it's more important that I share that than I worry about someone else's disapproval of me. But, you know, I paid for what I did. So I'm not going to wear that anymore. You know, you cannot keep punishing yourself for the sins of the past. They're gone. If you've repented and it's forgiven, and you don't have to keep suffering. Yes, make amends where you should, if possible. You know, if you've robbed someone, if you can pay them back, great, do that.
Take your ownership.
But everybody has failed. Everybody. So find a way to forgive yourself and say, well, what can I give? And it's not that you're making up for it, but treasure is found in dark places. It's not found in happy, bright places. It's found in the dark, hidden away places. You've got treasure. You've got treasure in your dark places. Find a way to find the lessons, find the gold, find the things that are going to be of value to someone else, and polish that up and share that, and you will change people's lives and encourage them. Shift and lift your thinking so that you can take those bits of gold and offer them to the world. And that's what I chose to do.
I really love that, because I think that it's key to overcoming any kind of adversity or trauma, is instead of saying to ourselves, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what is this trying to show me or to teach me? And it's a tiny little, flip of the way to view it. But I think essentially that from, listening to your story, you've done that. Instead of going, why did this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? I was just doing my job and trying to help people, and now I've basically been screwed over. Instead of like wallowing in that self-pity, you took on the ownership, and you went, okay, so what is this trying to teach me? And then what you took it a step further. What can you then teach other people that you got taught?
Instead of why me, what now?
Exactly. Yeah, it's very, very simple, but very, very powerful. So we are nearly at the end of the series. So we're going to cut to the break and we'll be back to wrap up in just one moment. So stay tuned, guys.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Happiness Ninja Down Under. I'm Jamie Rose, and this is Bold Brave TV. We have come to the end of the show. We have a few moments left. We have the amazing Trish Jenkins here. She spent 8 months in prison. She is now, well, she was before, but now she has much more focused direction on her preaching. And she is a shift and lift mindset coach as well as an author. Trish, we don't have long, so would you like to tell people about the books that you've written and then just give yourself a bit of a plug? I know that
Look,
me, so just, yeah, share with the audience a little bit.
Thank you. I would love to connect with people on social media. My YouTube channel is just my name, Trish Jenkins. Find me there. When I was incarcerated, I was writing letters and journal entries. I sent the letters to my husband, and I said to him, look, can you take the personal bits out and then just copy these out to our friends and family as an email, because I was using up all my stamps and writing in longhand. Well, he would meet people who said, how's Trish going? And he'd say, would you like to go on the list and you can get her letters? And they'd, yes. Well, those emails went viral. And when I came home, shortly after I came home, I published my letters and my journal entries in a book I called Treasures of Darkness, A Prison Journey. And you can take the journey with me. Look, so when I'm writing this part hadn't happened yet. So it's as it happened. Now, I don't want to spoil the ending, but she gets out. And I do have a playlist where I'm reading aloud from it for a while, and then I stopped because it was just, I would rather you buy the book. That's all right. And I do ministry as well. If you're connected with a church, I do it online preaching and ministry to bring freedom to people. And if you're in business and you're looking at making financial decisions, I've got one for ladies. Dangerous wealth, what every successful woman needs to know to avoid being ripped off. It's checklists. It'll protect your heart as well as your wallet, because once you give your heart, your wallet is vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And then I've got the same book for the fellas. It's the same thing. It's just that men think with a different part of their anatomy. Anyway, so yeah.
I wish I had read your
YouTube website. My website is speakertrishjenkins.com or Trish Jenkins Ministries. And then find me on YouTube, and please subscribe to my channel, like it, and Jamie's.
Yeah, and mine's Happiness Ninja or Happiness Ninja Down Under. Trish, as a side note, just to wrap up, I wish I had read your book before I came here. That would have been really helpful for me, because I got conned out of $10,000 here. So I encourage everybody to read your books, because I'm sure there would have been some red flags in there that make sense now to me. But hindsight is a beautiful thing. But at the time, if I had read your book, I think that it probably would have helped me to not get conned. So, did you want to? We have about like a minute left. Did you want to just share a little bit more about those books, the ones that can help people, save themselves from being conned?
Yeah, well, you can find my books on my website, which is speakertrishjenkins.com, and they're on Amazon as well. But basically, the finance books are about the questions you need to ask about the person, the opportunity, and yourself in it, what makes you vulnerable. Because there are checklists questions you need to ask before you part with your money or your heart. So there's that. And then the prison book is the journey, where it's written as it happens. And I don't always look good in it, but it'll be a blessing to you. And it's on Amazon. They're all on Amazon, or you can get them from my website. And yeah, if you've got a church or something you'd like ministry, get in touch with me. I'd love that.
There we go, guys. Trish Jenkins, she is incredible. She is full of knowledge, and she will teach you many, many things. Highly recommend you check her out on all the social media platforms and connect with her. She's a beautiful soul, and she's a very genuine person. Thank you for joining me today, Trish. And stay tuned, guys. We'll be back next week.
This has been Happiness Ninja Down Under with your host, Jamie Rose. Tune in each week and join the conversation as Jamie highlights the true power of the human mind to create a thriving world. Right here on Jamie Rose's Happiness Ninja Down Under.
You've been listening to the BBM Global Network. The ideas, views, and opinions of this broadcast are those of the participants of the program and are not necessarily the ideas, views, and opinions of the BBM Global Network Company.